All right, guys, so still working on the Ranger here, fighting the high idle condition and the rough idle as well. It's kind of a rough high idle. Anyway, I got scan tool here hooked up, and I have got it, I think, fixed-ish. I'll show you what I did. I don't know if it's correct or not, but it is definitely running better. See, RPM is 880. Idle air solenoid is at 34%. So that's got to be meeting desired RPM. Let's see. Yep, RPM desired is 896. We're 896, 900. So we're right there on top of it. .34% on the idle air. We'll give it just a little bit of gas. Let it idle back down. And you can see the idle air solenoid there. 24%, 23%. And the RPMs. So that's running pretty well right there. All right, so what I wound up doing is I don't know what year model this engine is. They replaced this engine. The previous owner had a used engine put in this truck at the Ford place because he had bought it from them and the engine went out. And so they got him a used engine out of something. I have no idea what year model or nothing about it. But anyway, it's been running like crap, and what I was doing here, there is a hole in this throttle body, and because I don't know what year model this engine came out of, I don't know if this throttle body is correct. So what I did was I put a piece of tape. Let me get a light over here so you guys can see if I can find the light. All right, so maybe you can see here. But I put a piece of electrical tape right there on that throttle body, on the hole that's in there. I don't know which year model throttle bodies and trucks had the this hole in it and what size hole, but that right there is closing off the excess air and allowing the idle air solenoid to operate like it should and control the idle and smooth out the idle and everything. If I remove that tape, the idle air solenoid goes all the way to 0 and it is still idling higher than it should, and it throws a code P1506 for unable to control the idle. We've already smoke tested it. We do not have any vacuum leaks on the intake or any hoses or anything. I've looked at all that. And I was thinking that maybe something was going on with the computer, and it actually tells you that on the scan tool on the troubleshooter there, if you go to the troubleshooter part, that if the idle air solenoid is good and you don't have any vacuum leaks or anything, that it could be an issue with the computer. Well, I found a used computer on eBay that's the same numbers and everything on it for 65 bucks. So I figured I'd take a gamble on it. I ordered it, and it just plugs in right there. You disconnect the wiring harness right there, one bolt, and I plugged the other computer into it, cranked it up, same thing. So that makes me wonder if this throttle body here is off of something else. One other thing I did notice here is that the mass airflow sensor is another thing that could cause this. That's not an OEM Ford airflow sensor. That's an aftermarket sensor. So there could be an issue with this sensor throwing a code, or they could have changed the sensor because of this problem. I have no idea. And so I could go and buy a sensor and put on here, and may or may not fix anything. Or I could block the hole off in this throttle body with something a little more permanent with that tape than that tape. Like maybe a nut and a bolt with some Loctite on the nut and bolt to close that air hole off, because it's still pulling enough air through the around the edge of the butterfly and through the idle air solenoid. The way the idle air solenoid works is there's a hole up in here you can't see probably. Yeah, maybe you can. There's a hole right there on the front side of that throttle body butterfly, and there's one right behind it on the back side. So there's a little valve in here that shifts back and forth, and it's able to take the air from this side of the butterfly and let it bypass to the back side of the butterfly by regulating this solenoid here, and that's what the computer does. So I don't know what that hole is. There's a letter A on it and 2 other letters. I've seen some other throttle bodies that had some difference in the holes and stuff, and so I don't know that throttle body is even for this truck. I mean, this could be an earlier model motor or something that different. It had a different computer programming, different injectors. I just have no idea. It's the issue I'm running into. So thinking about just putting a nut and bolt in there and some Loctite on it and letting her bump, because it runs pretty good that way. And I will put this back on there right now the way it is and let you see how bad it runs with it like that. I've also replaced the PCV valve because I thought that could be causing an issue as well, and there was, I guess, nothing wrong with the old one because we didn't change anything. So anyway, it wasn't but like $3, so figured might as well put one in there, right? So I'm gonna start this thing back up and let you see how it was running there the way she was. All right. You see the idle air solenoid's already dropped to 0. It's trying to bring the RPM down, but it can't. So RPM's at 1200, and the desired is at 9. Well, it's dropping on down to 800 now. This is desired. We're still way above 1200 and something, so we're 500 RPM above what the computer is commanding, and that is because the idle air solenoid is already closed all the way off and it's still pulling air, and evidently from that hole. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm going to block that hole off. All right guys, I have got a bolt in there. I had to take that throttle body blade butterfly out right there, and those screws had Loctite on them. Had to heat them a little bit with a torch and back them out of there, open the throttle body up, and then that blade will slide out right there. But as you see, I've got a bolt and a nut through it, and I put green Loctite on it, number 609, which is a bearing retaining compound, but that's all I got. That right there, I don't have any red. I was going to put red Loctite on it, but can't find my red Loctite, so either I'm out or I've lost it, one or the other. So hopefully the green will work and those won't back out and be an issue, and hopefully this will cure our idling issue. So I'm going to let that set a minute and cure a little bit, and then we'll start this thing up and see what it sounds like. Alright guys, we got battery hook back up here. We'll crank this thing up and let it relearn our new airflow and everything. got our scan tool here pulled up. This idle's coming down. This is a cold start. You see the coolant temp, 75 degrees. Idle air solenoid's at 45%. See what the desired idle is. $1,040. That's where we're at. So as it warms up, that idle air solenoid should be able to control it now, and it ought to idle on down another 200 RPM. I'm gonna let it sit here and run for a bit, and then bring you guys back. Alright guys, our engine coolant temp has come up to 160. Idle air solenoids in the 20s. That's about what you want. We got 800 RPM, 800-ish. Idle air is opening back up a little bit, 36%. So I'm gonna run it like that and see what it does. Still seems like the idle's just a little bit rough, but it's livable, you know. This is just going to be a farm truck anyway. It's not a going down the highway truck. It's going to be used like a side-by-side. So as long as I can get the idle right, not be idling at 1,500 to 2,000 RPM, we can live with it.